Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to An Hour to Kill, the only podcast where we take an hour of your time and slice it up. I'm your host, Dorian Adaholic Brown, and I have two very special guests today. On my left, I have the host of the award-winning podcast Burnt Tendies, Buffalo the Clown himself, Mac. Mac, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. You're going to be on here quite a bit, so it's good to get you into the fold finally and have you. We're excited to have you here, and this is going to be a great episode. And then on my right, I have the man who is about to be an award-winning podcast host, hosting the brand new podcast Why You Should Play, a very fun game enthusiast podcast. We have Bill himself, Poot. What's up, man?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. It's even though it's Monday, I had all my meetings at work canceled, so that's a big plus. So, yeah, can't complain. Just drink some water, off work. So, yeah, life's good.
Having all your meetings canceled sounds like a perfect day and like kind of the anti of what we're about to talk about, honestly, because that just sounds like a dream to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was like the exact opposite. Like things actually went right. So.
Exactly. Oh, that's great. And yeah, so if you looked at the title, you already know what we're here talking about. So we are talking about Ari Aster's brand new film, Beau is Afraid. Now, this is a special episode. I wasn't planning on doing this, but after watching this movie, I feel like I either need to talk about it with some people or go to therapy. This is a lot cheaper, so we're going to do this. All right. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Beau is Afraid today. I'm very excited. Ari Aster, obviously, if you listen to the first episode, one of my favorite directors of all time. Already just 2 movies in. He has my favorite horror movie I've ever seen. And he has branched out into something completely different. So we're very excited for that. But yeah, so we're going to talk about Beau is Afraid. We'll be back to the regular episodes next episode. Our good friend Morton, the Morton man himself, Damon Weathers, he wanted to be here, but he hadn't seen the movie yet. So he couldn't make this one, but he will be back for the next regular episode. So don't you fret, folks. All right. So I think we're about ready to get started here and start this timer. If we have nothing else, Mac, are you ready?
Absolutely.
Poot, ready
Always.
to go? All right. So we are going to start the timer in 3, 2, 1. And we are off. We have 1 hour to talk about Beau is Afraid, directed by Ari Aster, and of course this year, written by Ari Aster, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Patti LuPone, Amy Ryan, Parker Posey, Nathan Lane, and a cast of many others. A paranoid man embarks on an epic odyssey to get home to his mother. So here's how we're going to do it. We're basically, Beau is Afraid itself, and obviously, I shouldn't have to say this, but full spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen this movie and you want to, don't listen anymore. We're going to spoil the shit out of this. But how we're going to do this is Beau is Afraid is basically broken down into 4 major sections. We're just going to kind of go section by section and talk about it. Before we do that, though, we're going to do a little bit of background on the movie, our thoughts on Ari Aster in general, and then just we're going to get into it. So for me, obviously big Ari Aster fan. You know that if you watched the last, or listened to the last episode, very big fan of his. I've been waiting for this movie for quite some time. Obviously, Disappointment Boulevard, when it was called that, I was like, oh my god, Joaquin Phoenix and Ari Aster, are you kidding me? This is going to be incredible. I hadn't heard any of the rumors that this was actually based off of Beau, so that was all new to me once the title change happened, and I kind of had to dig into that and then go watch the actual Beau short film, which was really cool to watch. But yeah, so that was all really interesting to me. I watched the trailer for it like 5 times when the trailer first came out. I was really excited for this movie. And overall, I mean, it's hard to say I love this movie. I do love this movie. But if you've seen this movie, you'll know it's very hard to put a score or even just a reaction or a rating to this movie, just because it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. And it's one of the few movies where we actually finished and it was a fairly full crowd in the theater. And people just sat there as the credits were rolling. And we just kind of had to process it for a few minutes. We're like, what the fuck did we just watch? So, fascinating stuff. Mac, why don't we go to you now? Give me your thoughts on Ari in general, and just your overall thoughts on this movie and your hype for it and going into it and all that.
I've been a pretty big Ari Aster fan ever since I saw Hereditary. Me and my friend decided to go see it. I had never heard anything about it. So I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'll see a horror movie, that's fine. I was blown away by Hereditary, and then I was like, oh cool, Midsommar came out, I think that next year, and after seeing it, I was like, I'm fully on board. I think I saw a few of the shorts right before Midsommar, but I've seen everything to this point. I was very excited for Beau is Afraid. We did that most anticipated films podcast on Burnt Tendies, and I think it was your number one, and it was like my number two or something like that. So I was pretty excited for it. I knew a little bit about it, how it was going to be based on Beau, the short film, a little bit. I really, really like this movie. I'll leave it at that for now.
Perfect. All right, Poot, what about you? Let's hear a little bit of your background on this.
A little bit of my background is, first of all, generally speaking, horror is not really up my forte. This may sound kind of snooty or snobbish, but I like my horror films to usually be about something. I'm kind of over the sort of the kill compilation slasher films, like much to Mac's chagrin, like the Halloween films and the Jasons. I know. I'm just starting off with haymakers now.
I'm holding my tongue so hard.
Yeah,
right
well, yeah, I know. We know who is in Midsommar. We know why you like that movie. But yeah, so when like Hereditary came out, I'm like, okay, this seems to be a little bit about something. I like Toni Collette. I like Gabriel Byrne, and the movie. Yeah, it really exceeded my expectations. Because really, at that point, Ari Aster really had no, he had no reputation. It's just kind of a relatively unknown. That movie kind of came out of nowhere and just knocked people's socks off, and I really liked it. And then moving into Midsommar, again, it's not, especially the specific type of movie it is, dealing with the cults and exploitation and kind of this sort of, these fish out of water, sort of horror-ish tale that these characters go on. I liked it a lot, generally speaking. I like Ari Aster's, both of his films a lot. They're not as much up my alley as some others, hence why others are high on him, and that's perfectly fine. But then Beau is Afraid comes out, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to try to watch a trailer, and of course, as it happens, I see the trailer in theater, and it's still, you watch the trailer, and it still doesn't tell you anything about the movie, because the movie is just so insane as it is. But I think kind of coming out of it and giving it a little time to marinate, I think it's probably my favorite of his three films. That's probably a hot take, but yeah, it spoke to me in reasons which I'll go into more extensively. But yeah, it's probably my favorite, and it made me appreciate his other two films in a distinct way even more, which I'll go into later on. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And honestly, I don't think it's that much of a hot take. I feel, especially, what you just explained, your background not being as into horror, which, by the way, why the fuck are you on this show? Get the fuck off.
I was just in the area. I was stopping it.
Yeah. By the way, I should have mentioned this at the top. Yes, technically Beau is Afraid, I know, isn't a horror film, but it's still one of the most horrifying movies I've seen in a long time, so fuck off.
I had this discussion with people, too. I'm not sure that, I think Hereditary is easily his most horror film.
I agree.
Midsommar is, like I said, it's more of like an occult exploitation type of film, more of like the 70s sort of Wicker Man kind of deals. But yeah.
And even Hereditary, if you take out the ending, it's not that horror either. So I think he's very good at disguising scary elements in different ways in his movies and making them non-traditional horror, which is why I love Ari and this movie in general. So great. All right. So let's get started now, and we're going to talk. We'll right into part one, which basically we meet our. I'm going to use the word hero here very, very lightly, but we meet our hero, Beau himself. And man, Beau's just having a hard time, is he not, boys? So this first act of the film is basically all about Beau and his meeting with his psychiatrist, and we get into his head and see exactly this world he's in and what's going on. So I'll toss it over to you guys, kind of take the direction where you want to go to start. But yeah, let's talk about that first part of the movie, your impressions. What did you think?
Okay. I like that the very first thing that we hear our main protagonist say is asking if it's okay that he swallowed mouthwash. Will it give him cancer? Scene. It just sets the tone for what kind of character he is.
Yeah, it's funny that Mac mentioned the first thing the characters. I mean, the first scene is like the birth canal thing, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like a blonde, like that Netflix blonde movie. I'm like, oh my god, no, what are we doing? It's like the exact same thing. I'm like, no. I was like, but then again, it kind of sets the tone for the movie. I'm like, okay, we're getting something pretty insane. Whether it's going to end up good or bad is we shall see in 3 hours. But it's it really starts out with a wallop there.
So I really wish that I could pause this movie in the theater just to see like everything in the background, because there's like
Yeah.
so many billboards, there's all kinds of writings on the walls, and a lot of that stuff like kind of really plays into the film too. I know somebody had got a digital screener and just so they could pause that they contacted A24 and they were just kind of talking a little bit about it. I can't remember the article, but I'll have to share that with y'all. It was pretty interesting. But there was just so much in that therapist scene. Did you notice like how there was a camera with the blinking light? I didn't notice that until my second watch of this film, and it kind of
No.
comes
Yeah, I
into
didn't
play
notice that.
later on. I just started looking around. Yeah, I just started looking around in the background for stuff on the second watch, and uh, it really is just kind of the short Beau, just magnified, and just more and more. I think any person can find a different part of this film that they think's the best part. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is like the best part for some people.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. And there's a lot of stuff in here that's funny. Like, I think the funniest scene in the entire movie for me, personally, is here, and it's that kind of psych gag you get when when he goes away. He takes the pill, always with water, but he doesn't fucking have water, so he freaks out. He looks online, and like the only thing he finds are fucking Google results of obituaries of people who took the pill without water. So he's fucking panicking. Goes across the street, lost his keys at this point, props the door open with like a fucking, I think it was like a telephone book, gets in the fucking place to try to buy some water. His credit cards need to decline. And then the dread and the fucking humor of watching the people, everyone off the street, all the fucking murderers and crackheads, just slowly, single file, like walk into his fucking apartment building, just fucking sent me. I don't know what it is about that scene, but I find it fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it was a really good. It was a really good sense of escalation, and then like the final sort of tipping point wasn't like a massive explosion necessarily, or like, there were bursts of violence in the movie and even in the opening bit, but like the big sort of oh shit scene was just people walking into a building, because it was like it was really slowly building up to that, and he's sitting there, fiddling with the card get declined, and he's fiddling with the change, and it's just a really good sequence of events that just get you more and more on edge and kind of set the tone for the rest of the movie. And a lot of it is, like I said, just mundane stuff, like your car gets declined. I mean, Lord knows it happens to me all the time with that stupid chip garbage that they have with credit cards now, and fiddling with exact change and trying to keep a door propped open, and yeah, it's just really really great. And you kind of get the sense, knowing Ari Aster's films, that the initial sort of thing, like the thing with the pill, you're like, okay, here we go. What's the roller coaster ride that he's gonna put us on? And yeah, it just set the tone for the rest of the movie. And I forget which one of you said it, but how any act of this movie could theoretically be someone's favorite. And I haven't really thought about which one is my favorite, because I think they're all kind of great in their own uniquely insane way. But yeah, it's just a really an amazing first act for me.
Can we all agree that Birthday Boy Stabman needs his own spin-off movie?
Yeah, he definitely does. That entire kind of opening sequence was like a Grand Theft Auto game, but it was like even more insane. It was like on bath salts or something. And there's, of course, like the scene with the cop. I guess maybe that was some social commentary where he's like, my hands are raised, and the cop's like, don't make me do this, and he's just standing there with his arms up, helpless. He wasn't, being antagonistic or instigating or anything. I was just like, oh my god, it's like everyone is, the cop is as really as paranoid as he is the whole time, right? So yeah, it was great. Yeah, I really, really loved that entire sort of opening sequence, if you will.
Mac, your thoughts on Birthday Boy Stabman?
I just really enjoyed Joaquin Phoenix hanging ballsack throughout this film. I gotta say that was a highlight.
Yeah, poor guy.
And then,
man.
of course, he runs out in the nude. So then, of course, the cop's gonna think that that's the guy, and he's holding the mother statue or whatever. There's definitely a lot. There's a lot of social commentary in this film. That little scene, that little small scene with the police officers, definitely a little bit of it. But I do think this film really does show like how bad anxiety can be for people. Like talking
Yeah.
about him having to go get that water. Something simple as buying water across the street
Yeah.
is like just huge ordeal, and it's just like so difficult for him to just accomplish.
Yeah, like I know for me, like um, every time I go to the grocery store or like maybe go out to eat or something, I'm always so afraid of my card getting declined because I know it'll be like I know it's because of the chip not working or the stupid stripe not working. But you know, anytime you, for example, like when your card gets declined, people think like, oh, he's broke, he doesn't have any money, and I'm like, God forbid, that's like the worst thing ever, right? It's like the ultimate, even though it's something as stupid as a chip not working or whatever. So, and yeah, I have those moments. Like I bought wiper fluid for my car, and it's just sitting in my trunk. I just keep forgetting to to put it in my car. So it's like, oh, it's just those little things that set you off in anxiety, or you get paranoid about forgiving something, and like the thing where where he woke up late. That's happened to me. That's happened to us all the time, right? So, um, yeah, it's just really like Matt kind of reinforced what I said earlier, where it's just the most mundane, trivial things that really send you into anxiety spirals, and I think we all can relate to that for sure.
Well, yeah, and they do such a great job with it too. Because again, kind of going back to him sleeping in late, he's trying to, he's responsible. He goes to bed at 11 o'clock. He's ready to have an early night, and he just keeps waking up because somebody keeps sliding notes under his door saying to turn the music down. He's not playing any fucking music. So I mean, it's one thing after another for this guy, and I think you said it great, both of you, that this is just a very accurate portrayal of somebody who probably has extreme anxiety issues. Now, he's a very unreliable protagonist in this movie, and we'll talk about that more throughout, I'm sure. So how much of this is completely honest, I don't know, but this is definitely how he's seeing it in his head. And, that's what I think it would be like if you suffer from that type of anxiety.
I did see something online that somebody said Ari Aster wants you to take everything literal. And I find that hard to believe because I couldn't find anything that he said that. But if he wanted you to take everything literal, I really have some questions.
I mean, we all know Ari Aster needs therapy, so I wouldn't put it past him. But all right, so I think like we've got almost about 15 minutes there on that first part. Anything else you guys wanted to go over in that kind of first chunk of the movie, or did you want to move on to part two?
I do have something.
Go ahead.
So like I didn't really notice this until the second watch, but you can see Amy Ryan's character throughout this first part and the van. I didn't really notice that until the second time. I don't know if you've noticed that or not.
No, I didn't notice that. That's very interesting.
So like Joaquin's running back to his apartment. They're the ones giving out the food and stuff like that. And then like when he's buying the water, you see the van kind of beside the apartment. It's like they're always there.
Very interesting. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah, make me want to rewatch it for sure.
Play into kind of what happens in that last act as well. It kind of ties it together.
Yeah, absolutely. When we'll get there, but the attention to detail is outstanding.
Yeah, and who can forget the guy who's hanging on the ceiling above the bathtub? Just that entire like little isolated scene of anxiety when the guy's like hanging out for dear life, and Beau's like, oh my god, and then it just like kind of
and of course there's a brown.
Oh
recluse.
yeah. Then the brown recluse shows up, and yeah, it was great. Yeah, that kind of that even just that one scene alone was great. Aside from the entire opening sequence. So
Yeah, definitely a tone setter to start that entire movie off. Nothing prepares you for this movie, but you kind of get into that kind of first cut of basically every part in this ends with Beau sustaining some sort of head trauma or trauma of some sort. And definitely, once you get past that first one, you're like, all right, I see. We're definitely, I can kind of see some of the direction we're going down here. But yeah, so our hero Beau at this point, he's hit by a car. He's stabbed also by Birthday Boy Stabman, which we find out after, and is taken in by a lovely couple played by the fantastic Amy Ryan and Nathan Lane, who, shout out Nathan Lane, man. Everything that guy is in is just hilarious. And he might be one of my favorite characters in this movie. Just the way he talks to Beau, like, hey champ, how you doing? Like just
how are you doing, my dude?
Yeah,
how's it going, my dude?
He's the type of character, like, obviously he's a dad. You totally imagine him, like, wearing New Balance sneakers with crew socks, wearing jorts, and like grilling out with his tongs and like his hamburgers and hot dogs on the grill. How you doing, sport? And it's like, okay, dude, you're just trying too hard right now. It was great. One really quick one little anecdote. When that scene started, when he wakes up, there is a chandelier above him, and the way the shot is, seeing as you can see the chandelier, which is, again, it's just like really small dose of that dark humor. Of course, when he finds out that his mom was killed by a falling chandelier, crushed her head, or whatever silly like over the top graphic detail that they provide. So I got a little chuckle out of that too. I'm like, all right, I see what you're doing there.
Which incredible cameo by Bill Hader.
Oh yeah.
As the as the UPS driver who's just like, man, I'm just trying to do my job. I open the door and I don't know, man. Hey, maybe call back. This isn't your mom. Just call back. Calls back. Oh, I'm so sorry, man. Just great shit. But yeah, we failed to mention that Beau's mom is dead, by the way, at this point. Head crushed in by a chandelier. And poor Beau, man, he just wants to get home. But he's been saved, thankfully, by these people. He's got an ankle monitor tied up to him, and hijinks ensue. We also meet Kylie Rogers here, who plays Tony, the daughter, and is maybe one of the most psychopathic children I've ever seen in a movie. And then Jeeves, of course, is lurking around. Mac, what are your thoughts on this chapter?
This chapter really sets up something in this film where it's very Truman Show, and I just really love that aspect of it. The whole paint scene was absolutely wild too. I didn't really think that's where they were going to go, so I was like, oh god. But the whole thing, like in the background, you can hear Amy Ryan's character like on the phone, where she's talking about something in her contract, and you're just kind of thinking like, well, what is she talking about here? Which I think really kind of sets up in the last act. But you can tell something's not right here. It almost feels like he's more of a hostage than a guest who's just recovering. You have the whole camera, and he can fast forward, and then you see like little brief glimpse into like what's coming in the film, and you can see that he's being watched. I thought this was really well done.
No, I completely agree with you, Mac. This is a really great chapter, full of definitely some insanity, and definitely like my biggest touch point to this movie is for me it's just the Truman Show with mommy issues, and I think this chapter in particular kind of sets the tone for that. Poot, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really liked this chapter coming off the previous one, because this one was more of a slow burn for me. Like you guys said, as soon as he wakes up and you kind of see the interpersonal dynamics of everyone involved, you're like, something is just not right. Something is quite off, which, again, it's an Ari Aster film. It's not going to be surprising. But, like, with the paint thing, you're like, okay, what is going to kind of be the tipping point? Like, what's going to be sort of the inciting incident? Like, kind of like the end of Hereditary. Like, how is this going to go off the rails? And I thought it was interesting that they included, like, a sort of war vet character who, again, when you're talking about, like, guilt, like, someone in that situation has, some of the not only has some of the most severe form of survivor's guilt, I would imagine, they're also, obviously, they're not well mentally, right, to the point where they have to, like, basically make sure his meds are constantly strictly dosed, or else he's going to go off the rails again. And yeah, it was a great sequence with an insane payoff as well. I was afraid he was going to go off the rails a little bit, because I wasn't sure what was going to transpire with that little car trip they were taking. I'm like, this is weird. I'm not sure where they're going to go with this, but it comes back around and kind of rights the ship a little bit. And yeah, the ending it is nuts. And I like that it does have a sort of an extended payoff in the following sequence, when the kind of the PTSD guy shows up in one of the more memorable sort of outbursts in the movie.
Yeah, Jeeves continuing to stalk Beau throughout the rest of this movie is definitely one of my favorite things. I think it's hilarious. And yeah, this chapter is just kind of balls to the walls, man. Like, it starts off a little bit slow, like you said, it's a bit of a slow burn at first, but then when it goes, it just kind of cooks. And
I think the slow burn is deliberate, because like you said, it's like Amy Ryan and Nathan Lane, like they're so kind of doting over him, with the literal bell, and they're very hospitable and nice and genial, and like, it's like the Pleasantville thing. Oh, everything's so perfect. but then you're like, something's not right.
And I do find it interesting how it seems like, you know, Amy Ryan's character, or what is her character's name? One sec, let me just figure this out so I can stop calling her Amy Ryan. It's Grace. Okay, thank you. Grace in this movie. She's just very, like, compared to Roger, she definitely feels like a little more guilty. Like, she even there's that one scene where near the end, like, he's like gonna go cook some barbecue, and then he's gonna take him to go see his mother after that. But she kind of sits with him on the couch and is like kind of doting over him a bit, and then she basically tells him to look at channel, like whatever channel that is, 79 or whatever. And
78.
one of the weirder parts of the movie, 78, yeah. And one of the weirder parts of the movie, he flips to channel 78, and basically it's him being recorded. So he rewinds, he sees that it's everything, but then he fast forwards, and really cool, you basically see the rest of the movie play out on that screen, which I noticed on my second watch, including the final scene of him on a boat in the middle of the lake. So I thought that was very interesting. And yeah, it just kind of shows how this is all just one big joke and everyone's out for him, and he's basically just living in his mother's world.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I do, kind of circling back on what I said earlier, I like the really theme of guilt is driven home in that second act, right? Like the parents have the son they lost in the war, so they're immensely guilty, and then there's the friend who survived the war is guilty, so it really hammers home that theme of guilt. So yeah, I thought it was effective, even though like the humor elements were there. I thought but it still kept the sort of themes of the movie intact.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Mac, anything else you want to touch on here?
Yes. At one point, Amy Ryan's character was named Grace, right?
Yes, Grace and Roger.
Yeah, okay. She passes along the coffee cup, and underneath the cup is a napkin, and it's got written on it, "Stop incriminating yourself." And on the first watch, I'm just sitting there, I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't really understand what this is for. It plays out later on in the film, and it makes perfect sense when I think about it now. And then something I forgot about in the first part, when he's at the therapist, he writes down the word guilty. Just something to think about going forward.
Yeah, there's definitely there's so much of this movie that's foreshadowed and told really cool like that. And yeah, on your first watch, you're like, stop incriminating yourself. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I was thinking maybe something to do with the daughter, but no, it's much bigger than that, obviously. Which again,
Yes.
I just want to shout out how absolutely insane that fucking bitch is in this movie.
Oh, the daughter?
The scene of like at the very end of this chapter when her and Beau not Beau, but she just starts chugging the fucking paint down. I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah. And then the constant, well, not constant, but the occasional conflict of him staying in her room. And you're like, it's like a running bit in a comedy movie. You're like, God, man, this is just so funny every time. And again, it's something as trivial as that. Like when you're a kid or whatever, and there's maybe guests from out of town and family members, and like, hey, let them use your room. And it's always that like awkward annoyance. Oh, then when he again, there's the guilty moment again of when she catches him on their computer, and he just immediately thick projectile vomit all over the laptop. I'm like, oh my god. And it really is. It goes back to like teenage boys. Like one of the fears, like, oh, your parents are going to catch you watching porn or something. So, I think that's what he was going for with that. And so it's Beau again. It's like reliving like sort of guilt, embarrassment, trauma of that. So literally, figuratively, metaphorically, and literally, it all came back up in the form of vomit. So yeah, that was good.
Well, and it also works well too because that's he sees Elaine on the laptop, who we haven't talked about yet. Yeah. But basically, all throughout this, all throughout these parts, we get these little parts interstitched of some flashbacks and stuff like that. One of those is Beau, basically, and his mother, the young Beau's mother. They're on a cruise ship together, and he meets a girl named Elaine. And basically, that's kind of his first crush. They have a kiss, and she ends up, like, fucking off. And it turns out that we kind of see in that scene, then later on, she actually works for Beau's mother and is part of all this and was probably part of all of this on the cruise ship, and it's also fucking his life. But yeah, so let's get some final thoughts in on this chapter, and then we're going to move on. Mac, go ahead if you got anything.
No, I think we covered majority of it.
Perfect. Poot, anything?
No, nothing I can think of. This was it was a pleasant surprise because again, I appreciated the sort of slow burn everything. So it was a good sort of middle act, if you will.
Awesome. All right. So once again, Beau escapes the imprisonment of these wonderful people, Roger and Grace. Oh, by the way, the daughter's dead too. She choked too much paint. Beau hightails it out of there, makes his grand escape, and I believe hits a tree branch or something like that, and is once again knocked out. And we go on to part 3 of this movie, which may be my biggest hot take, but this is actually my favorite sequence of the movie. I fucking love this part of the movie, which seems like a lot of people don't. So I found that interesting. But we get the third part which is also, by the way, very radically different from this original script. I don't know if you guys know anything about this original script. I did a bit of research on it. And this part is very fucking different. But Beau ends up in this traveling, basically, theater troupe of people that put on shows before they're going to leave, I guess. And we kind of get this wild animation sequence of Beau living this life that's not his, but it kind of is his. I don't know, man. Max, start us off. What did you think of this wild odyssey of this chapter?
So I really like this chapter, but it's my least favorite of the film. And if they were going to, like, if this was actually not a blank check type project where he could just kind of do whatever he wants to, I think this whole bit gets scrapped. It's all this, like, the entire thing pretty much just sets up a joke, which I thought was hilarious. It just, I felt like the play kind of rivals Beau's life, but it's like a different trajectory of like what could have been type thing. But at the end, it just sets up is that he can't have sex because of his heart murmur. So like he has this whole thing where he's like found his 3 sons and stuff, but it can't happen according to what he knows.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It is just kind of a giant punchline, and I do agree with that. But my God, the animation do be pretty though, and that's basically the counterpoint I can give. Pooh, what did you think of this wild ride of a chapter?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It started off a little bit slow, but again, it was kind of like the previous chapter. I think almost in a way you can almost break down this film, and it's almost like the second act was broken into 2 halves. So I kind of see the sort of Nathan Lane, Amy Ryan bit, and then this camp, whatever you want to call them, the troubadours, the carnies, whatever you want to call them. It's kind of like 2 halves of a whole second act where obviously the sort of one PTSD character comes in and has a intervention into this portion of the movie. But yeah, I thought it was a good payoff. I think it was more of a traditional second act of a movie that sort of led into the third act. But yeah, I liked it a lot. I did like that sort of montage. It may have dragged on a little bit too long, but I mean, I appreciate it because it seems like Ari Aster really got to see his clear vision through for this entire movie, and I think that sort of montage sequence encapsulated that, and moreover because I think it was, like Max said earlier, it was kind of like his alternative life flashing before his eyes. For like, oh, you're going to meet a wife, and you're going to have children, and you're going to settle down, like a traditional, normal, well-adjusted, nice man would do. And so he kind of gets sucked into that to the point to where he's like, oh, are you my dad? And then right at that, and sort of that really maybe eureka moment, it literally gets blown up in his face, again, metaphorically and literally. And it was just,
yeah,
I was like, it showed the guy running towards him. And again, it's kind of like a really good dramatic filmmaking when you're like, okay, some shit is going to hit the fan somehow, some way. When is it going to happen, and what is it going to look like? And sure enough, I'm sorry, I'm just reminiscing about moments in the movie, and I'm just laughing because it's hysterical. It's just supremely entertaining, and Ari Aster is a maniacal madman, and yeah, again, it was another good payoff, and it really was like this. The 2-act, the 3-act structure, where the sort of the second act of the movie got broken up into these 2, like Max said, sort of hilarious, maniacal payoffs that I really enjoyed.
I'm curious. Have either of you looked into the original script at all?
No, I haven't. I will try to look into that though.
Okay, Mac, have you?
I have. It was more of like a cult in the forest, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's a cult in the forest, and he's basically trained to kill Michelle Obama. Which
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it wouldn't work because the ending is also completely different in the
Okay.
script. So yeah, like that just wouldn't have worked here. Like they had to change, like with the way they changed it.
I'm glad that he changed it. I think it works a lot better. And
Yeah, no, I agree. This is definitely a better movie. As funny as, like, I will say
look, was the original script before he did Midsummer? Do you know?
it's yeah, I
Okay,
think so.
so say
Yeah,
it would.
it's an old
Okay, I
ass
was gonna say
script, I
it would be
believe.
kind of like a retread of Midsummer then too, as well. I think.
It's basically like what he's always wanted to do, and I feel like you can take some things from this, from that script that he kind of incorporated into like Hereditary
Yeah,
and kind of
I
like
agree.
Midsommar. Like
Okay.
he's used some of it, so
Cool.
it's definitely an
Yeah,
older
no,
script.
Cool.
no, and I agree. I think what we get here definitely works better than the original script and idea. I will say though, the ending of the movie in the original script and the punchline you get from this whole bit is fucking hilarious. But I think you get a better movie removing that, as funny as it is, because it is fucking funny. But yeah, so yeah, this sequence is great. We didn't also touch on it, like we didn't mention it, but yeah, just because we did talk a little bit about it, Beau can't come. Or he'll die, literally. I think we also find that out this chapter, where if his dad and his dad's dad and his dad's dad's dad, they basically all died, basically conceiving their son, because of, what was it, like a heart thing they said, a heart murmur? I think.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. And so yeah, so that's basically Beau, or our young lad Beau has never come. So he couldn't have those kids, and that was our punchline in the play.
It is a little bit of a nice dark humor that the woman who finds him and helps him is a pregnant woman. So that was nice little
Yeah,
touch.
and her character's weird too. She doesn't do much, and I find it interesting too because there's the, like, again, it's kind of all Beau being set up, and we'll get to it later, but just quickly, there's kind of, he gives the pregnant woman the gift for his mother, the Jesus statue, the
Yeah.
Mary whatever statue that is. He gives that to her, and then later that's used against him, and they're like, even you could have give it. She offered to give it back, and you said no. And I made sure to watch the second time. I'm like, no, she never did offer to give it back. So you're fucking lying, man. Which I found interesting, but yeah, we'll talk about that more at the end. Mac, any other thoughts about this crazy chapter?
Do you think that pregnant woman had triplets, and that's where the three sons came from?
Oh, it could
'Cause that's
be.
kinda how
Yeah,
I
that
took
could
it.
be.
That she
Yeah,
would
that
have
could.
been
She's very.
the wife in the
yeah,
story.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, she's very pregnant. Very pregnant. So that could be. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
No, I can't think of anything.
No.
Just again another like wallop of ending to that sequence, and I was just like laughing out loud. So
Yeah, and like I said, the animation work in that little extended bit,
for sure.
really fucking cool stuff. I want to check out because apparently they've done some other stuff that's really interesting. So
And I did like the voiceover during the little montage. The way the woman's voice, I don't know if it was maybe post production or the way her voice was done up was really added to the sort of surrealist, dreamlike aspect of it. So yeah, I really liked it.
perfect. All right, well, we're gonna move on from part 3. We've got just over 20 minutes left on the timer, and I think that's good because we're probably going to want to talk a little bit here about the ending and the last chapter. So basically, that ends, like you said, Poot, with his, well, the guy he thinks might be his dad getting blown up to shreds. Our old friend Jeeves is back and is on the hunt. A big chaos gunfight ensues. Beau gets the fuck out of there. Jeeves ends up getting shot in like the shoulder, I don't know where, but he ends up getting like a machine gun through him and with another fighting guy. But while he does that, he triggers the little health monitor on Beau's ankle. Beau is incapacitated and wakes up sometime later in the middle of the forest, walks out to the road and gets a trip back to his hometown. There he finds, in a very funny scene, here lies the chandelier that killed his mother, amongst a lot of other crazy shit that goes down in this chapter. And yeah, this is probably definitely, like, I fucking love the ending to this movie and just the lead up to it. There's so many fun scenes to talk about here. Max, start us off. Where are we going first?
I think I have to start this whole section off with Parker Posey's Elaine character. This is also my favorite part of this film, this entire final act. I I don't think I've ever laughed so hard in my life when he finally gets to come. He blasts through that bag, as she says. And then she finally comes, and then it's her that dies. I've never laughed so hard in my life.
It's such a great scene. Oh yeah, the Mariah Carey, but the fact that Mariah Carey has to approve all her music in movies too, so she sat down and fucking watched that scene. Yeah. I was like, yeah, this is good. Ship it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that Mariah Carey showed up to the premiere. People were like, "What is going on? Why is Mariah Carey here?" And yeah, so it was outrageous. I think when you mentioned it earlier, Dorian, when he shows up and there's like a little memorial thing where the chandelier fell. I was like, okay, I think we're just going to go into like full on insane comedy sequence for the rest of this film, and sure enough, it did not disappoint at all. Yeah, and it was just it was amazing. It reminded me of a sequence in Gone Girl, which I don't want to spoil that movie, but it was reminiscent of that with sort of the dynamics at play and how hilarious it was, I think. But yeah, just an outrageous, and it just got more and more outrageous as it went on. And I was curious how he was going to end the movie. Then he reminds you, like, oh no, this is an Ari Aster movie. Like, this is not. There isn't going to be some like simple resolution. And yeah, the payoff was worth the ride. And yeah, it really didn't feel its 3-hour runtime. That sort of last act really was a massive exclamation point on the movie, and it just the way I was going to use a specific analogy, but the way things unfolded was just so rewarding for me, and why I kind of again I think it's probably my favorite Ari Aster movie. But I've only seen it once, so maybe when I rewatch it, maybe I'll be cemented in me liking it as much. But yeah, just from beginning to end, it was just amazing cinema to behold.
Yeah, the sex scene in particular is probably one of the most. I mean, I'm like Gone Girl's actually a good comparison, but I mean, this is still probably I think the most insane sex scene, just in general, the most I've laughed at one in a movie for sure. And they really do a good job playing on you too, because you know you with Beau's bad luck, you're like, all right, is Beau just gonna fucking die here? Like, I mean, that would be it. You finally come and you die, like that would be hilarious. But no, she dies. There's just something so fucking twisted about that. Just seeing her kind of corpsed over, instant rigor mortis, just dead. Like she shouldn't already be that stiff, but she is fucking gone. And then, oh, by the way, surprise, your mother's alive and she watched that entire thing and is now cleaning up your cum-stained sheets. Like, oh my God, the anxiety.
Yeah, I love that a crew shows up, like similar to a crime scene, right? Like they're going to clean everything up, they're going to dispose of the body, and I'm just like, man, yeah, when his mother showed up, I'm like, oh boy, what are we in for now? And it's just, yeah, it really is, it kind of is horror, because you're like, oh, the sort of the killer, if you will, is being like the person who orchestrated this whole thing the entire time, has shown up. And then when the psychiatrist walked in, I'm like, oh my God, it really was just like you guys had pointed out, like kept picking up on things on a rewatch. I'm like, oh my God, this is just great. And I think talking about it here has made me like the film even more now. But yeah, and then just the entire attic scene, I'm like, this is just insane. Like, what is going on right now? Like the giant dick and balls with the sort of like Starship Troopers bug claw arms, and then the PTSD guy shows up and he kills him. I'm like, what the fuck is going? Oh man!
Somebody's just like fast forwarded to this part. I want to believe, and they're like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Exactly. Like, I guess someone does. I assume, I don't know. I guess it was practical. Maybe it was digital, but someone designed that and drew it. And Ari Aster's like,
"It's a puppet. It's a puppet. It's in a Montreal warehouse right now."
But you imagine, like, I like to think like there's 3 or 4 versions of it, and Ari Aster's like, "Yeah, it's not quite right. Go back to the drawing board."
Add a little bit more hair.
Yeah, add a little bit more hair, a couple veins or two. You know, make it really more girthy.
I like to think Jonah Hill designed that. Personally.
Oh my God! But yeah, we didn't mention this, but throughout these little interstitches, Beau basically has this recurring nightmare of, I mean, another Beau, I guess, his brother maybe, we don't know. But he ends up going to this attic and he never sees him again. And it's just a recurring little dream for him. And then in the final act, he basically smacks down his mother a little bit for the first time in his life. His mother's like, well, you want to see your dad? Let's go. And they go upstairs into this attic to finally, for Beau to see his dad, who he's been told he's been dead all these years, but he's alive. He's just a bit of a dick. Literally. And yeah, he's just this giant penis monster. Yeah, like you said, Poot, PTSD guy barrels on through. And what I find interesting is he doesn't attack Beau, he attacks the penis monster, which, interesting. I think there's something to that, but maybe it's just supposed to be for humor effect. And gets stabbed through the head with whatever the little scythe penis monster the thing has. By the way, I didn't really realize this till the second time, but I cackled when I heard it. You know, the penis monster basically says, my boy, when he first sees Beau. I didn't get that the first time, but the second time I heard it, I was like, oh my god.
There was another guy in the attic, right? That was supposed to be his brother, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, if we're taking it literally, then yeah, I guess that's his long-lost brother. I don't know how much of this movie to take literally. Like, that was kind of like a figurative thing for me. Like, I'm thinking, okay, like, is this just another version of Beau that's been repressed and hidden up there? Like, there's no way his dad's actually a giant
Beau,
dick.
Yeah,
like,
Beau didn't want to act up against his mother because he'd end up there with him. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, and shout out to the I don't know who the actress is, but I think the mother deserves an award nomination. She was a supporting actress.
Great.
Obviously, she was extraordinary. I was just like, she was maybe my most memorable performance of the movie, with just her limited screen time. She really was like a force of nature, like a killer in a horror movie.
Very, very powerful stuff. I agree.
I definitely took that other Beau in the attic as the version that was repressed in himself by his mother, just emotional abuse over the years, and every time like he had some courage, like anytime he would kind of defy her, she would just stick him up in the attic and stuff like that, and finally he just kind of became the person he is, the anxious mess that just doesn't want to take a leap for anything.
Yeah.
I also thought for a split second the underlying story is going to be like, oh, don't be so scared, like go for it whenever with the scene with Elaine, and then when she dies I'm like, oh yeah, this is Ari Aster, what was I thinking? But I just really loved this entire section. You have him going down and you seeing the company throughout the years, and it's pictures of him, and it's like they created products to fix whatever problem he was having because his mother wants to fix everything for him, control everything, and then you just get through the years and it's like he becomes super and anxious about stuff, so then they get into like pharmaceuticals and stuff like that, and then you get to that big blown up picture of this mother's like face, and then you have in that picture it's like all the employees. Well, all those employees are people he's seen throughout this film, and when he walked in, I'm pretty sure when he walked in the house, like there's two people leaving, and I'm pretty sure one of those guys was like the stooper in his apartment building. I don't know if y'all noticed that or not, or if maybe I just was projecting on that.
No, I didn't.
But he looked very familiar.
I noticed the second time I watched it, I noticed Nathan Lane's face, Roger's face in the collage. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, clearly that's just everyone. I mean, that's just more Truman Show aspect. Everyone's a hired actor in his life. No, there's one guy that chases him with all these tattoos. He's in the picture.
Yeah, now that you mention it, we're already, again, I've only seen the movie once, but did you guys happen to get a look at any of the caterers that came in? Like, remember when he first showed up, there was like the caterer workers and some other stuff that were packing up and leaving? I'll have to try to pick up on that on a rewatch.
No, I'd have to watch it again, which I do plan to see this one more time.
Yeah, because again, the way you guys are, the stuff you guys have picked up on, it's clearly like every little thing is deliberate in this movie. So I'm kind of wondering, like how detailed and orchestrated was every single like individual in the movie. You know, like down to like single extras in the movie, like were they referenced as also working for his mother? I'm just, again, you guys have made me want to rewatch it, and you're making me like it more. So, well done.
I'm thoroughly convinced that everyone that Beau sees is hired by his mother.
Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure. Yeah. It's definitely the type of movie where when I get that 4K cut directly from A24 shop, shout out shop a24.com. I'm going to pause a lot, I'm thinking, and just kind of look for little details.
We're gonna be like Charlie and It's Always Sunny with the paranoia, the lines connecting all these people.
Yeah.
Pepe, Sylvia.
It's going from here to there.
Carol. Yeah,
No.
exactly.
All right. We got our 10-minute warning here, so just quickly gonna like mention. Basically, we get their end. So yeah, so he strangles his mother. Mother ends up through the glass. She's dead again, so we think. He hightails it on a boat and escapes, and then we get the crazy final sequence of this movie where he's out in the middle of the lake on a boat, and he's being judged for all of his sins. His mother represented by this very loud lawyer who's perfectly mic'd, and then his defense attorney who we can barely fucking hear trying to defend Beau. They go through his memories and all of the things he's done throughout this movie. He is found guilty and his boat capsizes and he basically is left to drown. Which, by the way, very beginning of the movie, there's a little brat playing with a boat and it capsizes and drowns the same way.
Yeah.
So, again, really cool foreshadowing for the end of the movie. But yeah, that final sequence, what do we think, boys?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I mean, I'm always a Richard Kind fan. I don't see him in much stuff, but he's always like very good. He was the perfect casting for that sort of. I kind of, again, to touch on what Mac addressed earlier with the other guy in the attic. I think he was supposed to be representative of sort of Beau's guilty conscience, just constantly judging him, right there attached to his mother and basically parodying everything that she probably would have said or has said already to him, and it's just kind of existed inside of him his whole life. Just his sort of really kind of semi nails on the chalkboard voice, almost like kind of shrill and shrieking at him, pointing his finger, like his finger's like stabbing him almost. And yeah, it was just really, really amazing. And I like that it was like a sports arena almost, obviously filled with water, but it was like everyone was witnessing him, and he really like kind of basically was on trial. And that, he tried to escape on the boat, but he can't escape it. It's just it's always going to be there confronting him. And I think that's maybe what Ari Aster was going for. Maybe I'm misreading it, but yeah, I'm still thinking about the very very end, when the boat capsizes and it tips over. Like, what does that mean exactly? I haven't thought about it too much. I think I'll kind of glean more from it when I do a rewatch, hopefully soon. But no, I liked it a lot. It did feel kind of like the ending of a play, in some respects, which I'm always down for that when kind of movies can mimic stage plays, kind of the grandeur of them. But no, I really enjoyed it, and I liked that it kind of did have that cold close and made you kind of sit there and confront it in the theater. That it was effective.
Mac, thoughts?
Yeah, I basically took it as like the trial being just his mother guilt tripping him one more time. Just cherry picking moments, kind of over exaggerating what happened, not completely the truth. Just overpowering him, his defense just getting shut out, ignored. And he finally kind of like his inner self, he's kind of worked up the courage to kind of fire, and he's like trying to fight back, and then he just drowns. And he just gives in once again. That's kind of how I took it. I also really liked how the stars ended up just being like the foam flash, like cameras, or not cameras, but like the flashlight on a phones inside the stadium auditorium type thing. I just really thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that whole last sequence is really great. I think my favorite part of it, like the whole thing's obviously great, the judgment. I think we're just kind of seeing, like you kind of said, Beau's like going like through his anxiety riddled mind once more time of all these things he's done wrong, even though, not all of them is his fault, but some of them is. And I mean, I do think Beau is, by the time I got to the end of this movie, especially the second time, I'm like, man, you kind of deserve all this shit. Like, you gotta fucking do something and stand up for yourself once in your fucking life, man. But yeah, like that kind of all goes down. I really like the very, very end when you kind of the direct written and directed by Ari Aster pops up, and you just slowly see people in the stadium start getting up, realizing it's over, and leaving. Like they've finished, they've watched the show of Beau's life, and then you kind of get that reflection of, oh shit, I'm in the audience. This is the same thing. Okay, it's time for us to get up and leave now. We've just watched Beau's life. Fucking brilliant. And once that kind of hit with me.
Yeah, it was a pretty meta thing. And to kind of touch on the whole guilt trip thing, that one of the examples they cited is, again, it's something pretty mundane. It's like getting detached from your parent at a store or something. Like virtually everyone has gone through that, right? Like I've gone through it at grocery stores, retail stores when I was a kid, and it's just like he was just a kid. It's not like his fault. He didn't like deliberately run away, but it's just, again, something really mundane like that virtually everyone has gone through. That was I guess a point of evidence against him in the trial, if you will. But yeah, it was just very effective and very well done. I'm just very curious about the whole boat and drowning thing. Was it like we touched upon? Is it simply just like metaphorically drowning and literally drowning? I'm curious. It's one of those movies that I deliberately want to hear. Like if he's going to do a director commentary for the film, I would love to watch the film eventually in that format, because I would just love to hear him talk about it. Maybe ideally him and Joaquin, as crazy and insane as Joaquin is. It would be great to hear them discuss it, not just the end, but just the entire movie as well.
I don't know if y'all like watched any of those like Q&As after some of the screenings that he's done.
No, not yet. I do want to watch those though.
Well, somebody asked him kind of like, can you explain like what this is about? He goes, he just goes like, do you want me to explain the movie to you? Because I think he's trying to understand what she was asking, and he basically just says like, well, I don't really want to answer that, so he just kind of like gives a vague type answer, and I love that, because I don't like, it's nice to kind of know what the director's intent, but I wouldn't want to know immediately after I watch something. I kind of want to like think about it myself, and it's like, well, this is what I think.
Yeah, I should definitely let it marinate, and it's kind of funny watching Beau is Afraid and kind of what the movie's themes are about, and then you look at Ari Aster and you're like, yeah, you totally imagine him being someone who maybe is kind of like Beau, and obviously the movie itself is pretty exaggerated, right? But you totally imagine Ari Aster being like the kind of meek dweeb in school. Maybe he was stuffed in lockers or bullied or something, and he has a lot of repressed anxiety on his own. So it is kind of funny looking at him, knowing this movie and the other movies that he's made. Like, yeah, this dude has some things going on in his life in his past, but he's enabled to channel it into some pretty awesome cinema, I think.
I completely agree. Sorry, I got. We only got 2 minutes left, so I'm gonna have to cut her off there, because I do want to do this very quickly. I want to do like a little Ari Aster rating, so I'm gonna just get it out of the way here. I think Beau is Afraid is incredible. It's the 9 out of 10 movie for me. I have Hereditary at 10 out of 10, and I have Midsommar at a 9 out of 10 as well. Right now, as of my rankings, it would be Hereditary first, Beau second, and Midsommar third. Mac, what about you?
So I did a complete rewatch, and I did a triple feature Saturday in preparation for this, because I wanted to watch it one more time. I was like, well, I'll just rewatch everything. At third, I have Hereditary. At second, I have Midsommar. And at 1, I have Beau is Afraid.
Very interesting. So you have Beau on top, and then Poot, I think you said you have Beau on top. Do you have a second and third favorite, or were you leaning on that?
I don't know. I need to rewatch Hereditary. I kind of lean right now as Hereditary second, because I think I liked sort of the character dynamics in that movie more, but I need to rewatch it. But I do think I definitely have Beau number 1, and to kind of circle back around on what I touched on earlier, I think I appreciate the humor in Ari Aster's films more in all 3 films. I think that's why Beau speaks to me the most. I think Ari Aster has this like really, it's not like black comedy, but it's more like truly maniacal. Like he loves punishing his characters, but he does it in such an entertaining and hilarious way that I really appreciate it and respect it for how audacious it is. And I want to know, speaking of audacious, Mac is brave for putting a Flow movie at number 2. So I think it's very brave of you. I'm proud of you. You're growing
Mac,
up.
Buffo
She'll
is
understand.
nothing. Buffo is nothing but brave and
You overcame
bold.
your bias. I'm proud of you.
All right, we're going to stop the timer there with 13 seconds to spare. That is our Beau is Afraid conversation, and we've helped you now kill 1 hour. Thank you so much for joining me. Mac, do you have any final thoughts, plugs, things you want to say? Go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Flo.
That's so fitting. Mr. Poot, anything final for us to leave on?
Ari Aster, put Anya Taylor-Joy in your next movie. That's it.
Can we get her and Jake Gyllenhaal together? Can we agree to that?
Do we
do that?
deserve that much happiness? There comes a
I don't know,
point.
that's too much
There
happiness.
comes a point when you're like, do we really deserve that? I don't know.
Yeah, no, we don't deserve that. We don't deserve that.
Oh, but speaking, I think it is confirmed that Ari and Joaquin is going to be in Ari's next movie, so I'm excited.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm
The description
very
sounds
excited.
nuts, so I'm in. Like I'm in. Whatever that man does, I'm in.
Yes.
So
Yeah, whatever he does, I'm in, because I know I'm going to get something unique. I've never seen anything quite like Beau, or just his movies in general, so they're fantastic. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate it. For myself, for Mac, for Bill, it was great talking with you all, and we will be back for the next regular episode soon. Goodbye.